Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be covering from the Grand Chester Finals 2025, Praggnanandhaa versus Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. There are four people in the finals, the other pair being Levon and Fabiano Caruana. And it's being played in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and it is the first time, first time since 2019 that we actually have the finals in the format. Usually, you would just have the tour and no finals for the past 6 years. But now they're reintroducing the finals, and the system is they will play two classical games, then two rapid games, then four blitz games, and it doesn't matter if the match is already decided. All of the games have to be played out to satisfy us, the viewers. And you get 6 points for a win in classical, you get 4 points for a win in rapid, and you get 2 points for a win in blitz. So even if you win, let's say, the two classical games, you're already up by 12 points. You can still lose the match if you lose the two rapid and four blitz games, as your opponent will then amass a total of 16 points. So it's a pretty interesting format, and it's not my favorite regarding time control, as you have increments starting from move one. It's 90 minutes per player. Then you get additional half an hour after a 40th move has been played. But increment 30 seconds increment starts from move one. I prefer increment starting from move 40. It just makes the games a little bit more interesting. But the games are interesting as it is. So let's check it out. Pragg has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to d4. The other pair of the tour finals is Fabiano Caruana and Levon Aronian. So pawn to d4, pawn to d5, and pawn to c4. We have pawn to e6, knight to f3, and knight to f6. So the standard queen's gambit declined. Pawn to g3, Pragg opts for the Catalan. And now, well, there are many moves you can think of for black. Here is definitely a line. Top moves being bishop to e7, you can capture on c4, bishop to b4. Those are the top three options. But MVL plays bishop to d6, which is, believe it or not, the 12th most popular continuation. And it is extremely rare, but it has been played in a game this year in the FIDE Grand Swiss between world champion Gukesh and Arjun Erigaisi. So, of course, everyone has to know it, as it was played by such strong players. We have bishop to g2 following in the footsteps of that game. Castles, castles. We have knight b to d7. And here queen to c2 was played. And there are other games in the database where queen to c2 was played. This was Gukesh's move of choice. But here we have queen d3 by Pragg, and it is now, as of move 7 already, that we have a completely new game. Now, queen d3 is not in the engine's top 3 recommendations, so it's something Pragg either prepared at home, or he had problem remembering, or he actually just came up with it over the board. Because if you look at the situation on the clock, an hour and 24, and then Pragg makes the move, queen to d3. Now it's an hour 18. Okay, that's 6 moves, 6 minutes for move 7. So not, maybe he's pretending that he's out of book, or whatever. But yeah, queen d3 definitely doesn't look like something MVL could be prepared for. So let's check it out. We have pawn to b6. MVL also spent some 9 to 10 minutes on this move, so obviously it came to him as a surprise. C captures on d5. We have e captures, knight c3. Bishop to b7 and knight to h4. Okay, opening up the light square bishop, putting pressure on the d5 pawn a little bit, and maybe preparing to strike in the center. We have pawn to g6, stopping the knight from coming to f5. That would be very annoying for black. And the bishop to g5. Now the knight has been a little bit weakened, so bishop g5 makes sense. We have bishop back to e7 and rook 8 to c1. We have rook to e8 and knight back to f3, as you don't really have all that much to do on h4 with the knight. And you could go for something like c6 if you want to slow play it and then finish development, and then at some point play c5. You could also play c5 right away. MVL goes for knight to e4, and it makes sense. There's the bishop on b7. The knight is excellently placed, so it's a sort of an unburdening move. You want to trade off some material here. Pragg says, nope, we keep the material on the board. I have the white pieces. I want to make the game count. We have pawn to c5. Rook f to d1 and rook to c8. We have queen to b1, and bishop to f6. Knight captures on e4. We have d captures on e4, knight to d2, giving up the d4 pawn for the e4 pawn. C captures on d4, we have knight captures on e4, rook captures on c1, rook captures, we have bishop captures on e4, bishop captures, and knight to c5. And okay, MVL managed to trade down. He did give Pragg the bishop pair, but we'll see if it's going to be all that impressive. Pragg goes back, bishop to f3, and now you are looking at pawn to b4. I know you're looking at it because it's obviously the best move, but MVL doesn't allow it. He plays pawn to d3. And now it's a question, how does Pragg react to this pawn to d3 move? Now, I know what you're thinking. Can we not just play pawn to b4, kick away the knight, and then win a pawn on d3? Of course we can. It's even not that big of a deal, but if you play it, then you also allow knight e6. And while you will win the pawn, let's say queen captures, e captures, MVL will capture on f4 and mess up your pawn structure. And yes, you're up a pawn, but bishops of opposite color, your pawns are doubled. You know, if anything, it's maybe even black who's better here. So that's why Pragg plays rook to d1. He pins the d pawn, but we have pawn to a5, e captures on d3, and now bishop to d4. So MVL sacrifices a pawn to activate his game. Now the bishop on d4 is nicely attacking the f2 pawn. The knight is to remain there unless Pragg manages a3 and b4, and the queen is coming into the attack via queen to f6. Will put pressure, well, x-ray that f2 pawn, then maybe g5, g4 can be played. Definitely looks like a position that MVL would want to have. We have king to g2, queen to f6, and now you have to play queen to c2. You could also play pawn to h4. This also stops pawn to g5, but it weakens your king a little bit more. So that's why Pragg plays queen to c2. Point being that obviously if you play something or you know a3, b4, then just g5. The bishop has to move, then g4. The bishop has to move, and then you capture on f2, or you move to e3 and then you trade, and then you know you pick up the e3 pawn as well. All in all, black would be better here. So after queen f6, we have queen to c2, bishop captures on b2. Now MVL has nothing better than to grab a pawn as the queen is guarding that f2 pawn. Bishop to g5, we have queen captures on g5, queen captures on b2, so trading off the bishops, and the queen back to d8. To guard the b6 pawn, we have queen to b5 and king to g7. So this is the situation on the clock, 6.5 minutes for Pragg, 10.5 minutes for MVL, and 10 more moves to make to reach time control. We have pawn to h4, pawn to h5, and queen to c4, queen to d6, and now pawn to d4. Attacking the knight, we have knight e4 and pawn to a4. And this is a very good move, constricting the black pawns on the queen side. MVL does have 2-to-1 advantage, so paralyzing the pawn structure is definitely the way to go for Pragg. We have knight to f6, pawn to d5. Now it's excellently advanced, as it can be defended by every single piece that Pragg has. Rook to d8, and now queen to c6, offering a trade of queens. And if you're wondering, can you trade queens here? You really can't, because you already allow Pragg to have a passed pawn on c6. And it seems like, okay, captures, knight goes here, and you stop the advancement of the pawn. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy. You can put a bishop on b3, put pressure on that pawn. You can just march your king all the way to the queen side, and all in all, it would be winning for white. So after queen to c6, we have knight to g4 and rook to e1. We have queen to b4 and rook to e4, attacking the queen and putting pressure on the knight on g4. Queen to d2. And now just rook to e2. You could also go for queen captures on b6 and trade for the d5 pawn, but rook to e2, we have queen to d4, and now rook to c2. And here, Pragg makes a bit of a mistake. He made this move with 1 second on the clock, and he didn't calculate it well enough. You should go for just queen to c7. Queen c7 stops knight e5, and that's all there is to it. But with 1 second on the clock, he barely made it. He almost lost on time here. Rook c2, and now MVL goes for knight e5. Attacks the queen and the bishop, and you can't really move the queen now because knight captures on f3, king captures, queen captures on d5 check, prevents the king from going back. You have to go to f4, and then, you get checkmated really quickly. So after knight e5, we have queen to c3. This is how Pragg defends, and now knight captures on f3. We have king captures on f3, and now rook captures on d5. So a little bit dangerous, but okay, still holds. Queen captures on d4, rook captures and rook to c6, followed by rook to b4. And yes, Pragg does have an active rook, but he's down a pawn, and there doesn't seem to be a way to win it back. We have king to g2, king to f8, pawn to f3, king to e7. Of course, MVL brings the king into the game. King h3, pawn to f6. We have king to g2 and pawn to g5. We have king h3 and the g captures on h4. And here Pragg doesn't want to play g captures on h4 because that just leaves both of his pawns attacked all the time. But it actually is the best way to play. Instead, he played pawn to g4, and now look at this. H captures on g4, f captures, and king to f7. And now MVL is completely winning. We have rook to d6, king to e7, rook to c6, and here MVL couldn't figure out how to continue the game, and he played rook captures on a4, which allows Pragg to equalize. But the way to play is to go rook b2. You waste a move, and now if the rook moves, then you get to the 6th rank, and if the king moves and the king doesn't really have all that many squares to go to, you can capture the pawn here. And if you capture the pawn, then you take away the 3rd rank from the white king, and after the king moves, now you play rook b4. And now you cannot go back, otherwise f5, you just attack the pinned pawn, and if rook to c7 check, which is basically your only other option, then you gain control of the 6th rank, and after, let's say, rook b7, king to c5, and if rook to f7 going after this pawn, you defend it, and then, okay, you go here, capture the pawn, and start advancing your passed pawns to victory. So that is the way to do it. But MVL played rook captures on a4, and Pragg played rook captures on b6, and now the game is again a draw, but only if played to perfection, which is, not the way chess games most often go. We have rook to b4, and Pragg goes rook to a6. We have pawn to a4, and now Pragg goes for rook to a5, which again blunders the game. You have to go for rook a7 check. It is the only move. But after rook to a5, now we have rook to b3 with check. And this is, again, a mistake on MVL's part. The way to win this is to go rook f4. It's not easy to find. It's the only move that wins, but it's now that you see it, it kind of makes sense. There's really not all that much for you to do. And once you capture that pawn, pawn to f5, and that's it. If king to g5, you can just play rook captures, king captures, and rook to h4, and the king is too far away from the pawn. Point being that regardless of what you play, you can always, let's say here, you cut off the white king. You have the rook nicely on the b file, king to d5, and sorry, I meant if the king goes to e5, rook to h5 check obviously wins the rook. Yeah, so the king cannot go there. And if the king goes to g5, then you go rook to b4. And now the white king is too far away. You can easily cut it off, and the king will attack the rook, then defend the pawn, and then you will be able to advance the pawn to victory. So that is the way to do it. But rook b3 check was played, king captures on h4, and now pawn to a3. We have rook to a6, and now rook to f3. We have pawn to g5, f captures on g5, king captures on g5, and king to d7, king to g4, and rook to b3. And now you cannot, you can no longer win this. King f4, we have king c7, king e4, king to b7. The rook moves, rook h3, hoping that Pragg blunders a rook, but of course he will not. King d5, rook h5 check, king d6, rook h6 check, king c5, rook a6, rook to b4 check, king c7, rook b1, rook to c6 with check, king d4, rook b6, rook a1, and pawn to a2. And that's all there is. Of course, you capture the pawn, rook c6, a couple of more moves were played. Here they traded rooks, and on move 74, it was in this position that Pragg and MVL agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. So it's a pretty bad deal for MVL, not winning a winning position more than once here. But yeah, Pragg is a strong player, and if you don't, play those perfect moves, you're not gonna beat him. So it's definitely a missed opportunity. We'll see what MVL does with the white pieces today. Will it be another draw, or if you lose the classical game, it's not easy to get back into the match. But as I said, it's not impossible. So we'll see what happens. Very nicely played by both of them. A draw, definitely more favorable for Prague. But what are you gonna do? So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The game between Levon and Fabi also was a draw, but no real surprises there. It was a pretty level game. We'll see what happens in the other one. Hope we get more fireworks there, and maybe I even show the game, but we'll see about that. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Christopher Thompson, Robert Taraton, Rokaho, John Anderson, and Ulrich Tini for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, first link in the description below. Download Lotus Chess, learn how to play fighting chess, and start improving today. See you soon.